general instruction on the stitch, the general stitch that we use. Of course, you'll run the thread through the needle. And then a quick trick here for getting a knot on the other end is to hold the thread with one hand and bring the needle from underneath. Hold it with you're pinching your needle and the thread with the right hand, and then we'll wrap it from underneath 1, 2, 3 times, and then with the right hand we'll pull that wrapping all the way down to the other end. If you do it correctly, a knot will appear right at the other end. Oftentimes you can clip the extra thread off of there. For a lot of the sewing that we do, like if you have an edge here or a folded edge but then an edge here, oftentimes this is covered by another piece of fabric, so it's not critical that you hide the knot, so you can just come in from the bottom and then your knot will show up just on the bottom side there. If for some reason you needed to hide the knot, you can come in from the inside and then your knot is hidden. So with the thread coming up, we come back down just to the right side of that. So we go down, and then we're coming back up a little bit forward, and we're stitching at a rate where we have these stitches. There's about 8 per inch, and then different people sewing have kind of different distances that they come down to the right here. Some people will be quite close together, like the distance of only like a few pieces of paper thick, and then but some other people will, so we're going down and back up again, some other people will have a pretty wide stitch. So you can actually see more of the thread from left to right. Here it's wider, that one's smaller. So it's a good idea to use practice fabric to find out what your kind of natural inclination is towards what the stitch is going to show up as. So you want to practice this, and of course be mindful in the process of stitching. That'll allow you to get into just what will end up being a natural feeling motion for you, and then that will help prevent starting a project and then having the stitches show up differently for a while until you get into a flow there for how you'll end up doing your stitches in general. So we're doing again about 8 per inch, coming down, back up. And then if you happen to run out of thread, I have plenty here, but if you run out, we'll oftentimes be in an area, this is quite uneven here, this would normally be pretty even looking, but a lot of times in the back of the Rakusu robe, you'll have this stitch visible on the back side, and of course you won't want a knot showing up right in on the backside of the robe. Again, it's okay if it knots here, if there's another piece that's likely going to be covering that up. So in this case, as we're moving along with our stitch, we'll want to do a hidden knot. And to do that, we create a knot in the thread. Make sure you don't pull this too tight, but you make sure you don't have any loose pieces here on your stitch. And we'll just do come through and just do a standard knot with the thread. We're pulling it tighter. And then here, we'll put our pin down where we want the knot to be. So our last stitch is about this long. So we're going to go ahead about that same distance right inside the middle of the loop and pull this knot tight. Right there. So we've got a knot that is right about where that next stitch would end up falling in. And then we take the pin, is still threaded, and then we're coming in right where that knot is. So we'll go ahead a little bit forward, and then we only go through one layer. Obviously you don't want to come back through the top. Make sure you're not actually accidentally coming back through the top, because of course we don't want a knot showing on the top. So we come in halfway, or just through one side of the fabric here, and run your pin a little ways down and then back up. Pull that through, continue to pull it through, and then at some point the fabric will catch that knot and then keep pulling, and then it'll click, and that knot will now be in between the two layers inside of here. And then for this, again, I have plenty of fabric or thread here. Normally it'd be a shorter piece because you're running out of thread. You actually pull this a little bit tight, just so when you snip this, and always be very careful when you snip this, you don't want to cut the fabric. Snip that, and then when I kind of pull this back, that thread will disappear in between the two pieces of folded fabric. And then when you start again with a full length thread, what you want to do is, on this side we could see where our last thread was, and then on the other side we can see how it moved forward a little bit. So actually we'll want to be coming in right along here. So what we do is we come in again in between the fabric, and then come up right where this last length is. I'll put a pin in here so you can see. So right there is where the pin goes in, So you want to be coming up right in about in that area. So I lost my spot there. So the pin goes in, the needle, and comes up right near where you would naturally be continuing on. So we'll pull that through, and then again on this side you have the knot that is right there, and as we pull this through, you hear that click, pulls through, and now the knot is on the inside, and you're ready to continue on with a new length of thread. So we come back down to the right, and then back up, moving forward. Down to the right, move forward, and then continue on. That was a little sideways there, but yeah, move forward and then create the appropriate knot on the other end.